I have to warn you, do not watch this video alone. What I'm about to share is not a legend for entertainment. This is the story of a real railway station that was permanently shut down after a series of unexplained deaths. The official reports were sealed, and the results of the investigation were never released to the public. Even today, decades later, railway workers refuse to stay anywhere near this place after dark. The station itself was built many years ago. It was just a quiet, unassuming stop on a long railway line, surrounded by dense dark forest. It was a place you could easily miss, a forgotten dot on the map. Trains passed through daily, and a few railway families lived in the small quarters nearby. On the surface, everything seemed perfectly normal, until nightfall. According to local folklore, the land the station was built on was never safe. Strange accidents and disappearances had been reported in the area long before the first tracks were ever laid. People would vanish near the very spot where the railway now runs. But these old warnings were dismissed as superstition and ignored by the authorities. The first concrete reports came from the railway staff themselves. They started seeing something late at night. A woman, dressed entirely in white. She would be seen walking slowly along the tracks, always facing the oncoming trains. The staff said she made no sound. Her footsteps were silent. Her form cast no reflection in the powerful locomotive headlights. And whenever anyone tried to approach her, to call out to her, she would simply vanish into thin air. At first, the officials dismissed these accounts. They blamed it on stress, fatigue, or simple hallucinations from working long, lonely nights. But the sightings continued. It wasn't just one person. Different workers, on different nights, all reported seeing the exact same spectral figure. Soon, the fear wasn't just limited to the staff. Passengers began to feel it too. They would report a sudden, overwhelming sense of panic while waiting for a train. Children would start crying hysterically for no apparent reason. People traveling with dogs noticed their animals would refuse to set foot on the platform, whining and pulling back in terror. After midnight, the station's lights would flicker violently, sometimes going out completely for minutes at a time. The telephones in the station master's office would ring, but when answered, there was only dead silence on the line. Some workers swore they could hear whispers carried on the wind-soft voices calling their names from the empty, darkened platforms. The locals, who had known the old stories, stopped passing through the station at night altogether. They said the station was now awake, and then the deaths began. It started with the station master. He, his wife, and their 2 young children were all found dead inside their locked railway quarters. The doors were bolted from the inside. There were no signs of a break-in, no signs of a struggle. The official cause of death was never made public. The case files were immediately sealed. After that horrifying night, no one wanted to work there. The railway authorities were forced to stop all trains from halting at the station after sunset. Authorities tried to deny everything, brushing off the incident as a tragic but isolated event. But behind the scenes, the station was quietly being abandoned. The woman in white, however, was still being seen. Now, she would stand even closer, right at the edge of the platform, just watching the trains that no longer stopped for anyone. What happened next was a secret never meant to be known. This is only the beginning of the story. Follow for part 2 if you dare. Some places don't die, they wait. Tonight, we journeyed to a station that was closed for decades, swallowed by time, but never truly silent. The hauntings here never stopped. They only grew stronger. For over 40 years, this station was a forgotten relic. The tracks rusted into the earth. The clocks were frozen, their hands pointing to a time long past. Weeds and vines reclaimed the platforms, climbing over everything, as if nature itself was trying to bury a dark secret. The city moved on, but the locals, they never forgot. They whispered of movement in the derelict halls, of faint footsteps echoing in the dead of night. They saw lights flicker in windows where no power had run for decades. And the most chilling reports. People living nearby, even those just passing through, swore they heard the unmistakable sound of a train pulling into the station. When no trains had been scheduled for almost half a century, the rumble of wheels on iron, the hiss of brakes, the faint announcement of a destination that no longer existed. It was a phantom, replaying a moment trapped in time. As the legends grew, so did the curiosity. Several paranormal investigators and urban explorers were drawn to the site, hoping to capture proof of what the locals had been whispering about for years. They came armed with cameras, audio recorders, and a healthy dose of skepticism. But what they found defied all logical explanation. They would set up their equipment in the cavernous, decaying main hall, a place that felt heavy with sorrow. Audio recordings, when played back, revealed things the human ear couldn't catch. Faint whispers, low and distorted, that seemed to crawl out of the silence. The words were never clear, always just on the edge of comprehension, like a forgotten language spoken by the dead. Technology failed spectacularly. Brand new cameras would malfunction without warning. Fully charged batteries would drain in an instant, as if something was drawing the energy right out of them. One investigator, a man who had visited dozens of haunted locations, had an encounter that made him abandon his work entirely. He was exploring a darkened tunnel near the platform when he felt a sudden bone-chilling cold. He turned, and there she was, a woman, inches from his face. He said her features were a blur, a swirling void where a face should have been. The footage from his camera that night was corrupted, unusable. The official report states equipment failure. But he knows what he saw. The tape was never released to the public. He said some things are not meant to be seen. The horror didn't always stay within the station's crumbling walls. For some who dared to venture inside, it followed them home. It was subtle at first, the feeling of being watched, a fleeting shadow glimpsed in a darkened hallway, the unsettling sound of footsteps just behind them on an empty street, or worse, right outside their bedroom door at night. The most terrifying aspect was the sound. They would be miles away from the station, tucked safely in their beds, and they would hear it. The distant, unmistakable rumble of a train. It was a sound that became a constant, terrifying reminder of where they had been. One story stands out, a chilling testament to the entity's reach. A former railway worker, a man who had been part of the original crew when the station was first shut down, was consulted when talks of reopening began. He was vehemently against it. He warned the city council, pleaded with them, telling them they didn't understand what they were disturbing. A few months later, he vanished without a trace. The police found his apartment empty, the door unlocked. The only clue was a note left on his kitchen table, a frantic scrawl that read, "She's still there." Despite the warnings, the disappearances, and the decades of chilling stories, progress won out. Years later, the station was refurbished and reopened. City officials dismissed the hauntings as local folklore, urban legends meant to spook teenagers. They ran a PR campaign, celebrating the new, modern transit hub. But the old fear clings to the place like a shroud. To this day, railway workers refuse to take the night shifts alone. They report seeing things out of the corner of their eyes, hearing whispers over the intercom when no one is broadcasting. Commuters have their own rituals. They avoid the far end of the platform after sunset, the exact spot where the most sightings have occurred. They hurry through the main hall, never lingering too long, because the sightings haven't stopped. Witnesses still report seeing a woman, often described as wearing a white, old-fashioned dress, standing near the edge of the tracks. She doesn't move. She doesn't speak. She just stands there, staring directly at the incoming trains with an unnerving stillness. Waiting, always waiting. For a train that will never arrive, or perhaps, for a passenger she is destined to meet. Some of the original investigation reports from decades ago were sealed by the authorities, classified for reasons that remain unknown. Several independent inquiries were shut down before their findings could be made public. The station still stands. The tracks are still active, with thousands of people passing through every single day, completely unaware of the shadow that lingers just out of sight. The woman in white never left. She's still there, watching, waiting. In some places, they never let you go. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story gives you a nightmare.